Okay, so I want to elaborate a little bit more on the video I did earlier because I ended up getting into an awesome conversation with a friend of mine in the comments that made me want to do a actual separate video on this. So, for those of you that are curious about servitors and egregores, that's what I'm going to talk about right now. Because these are what I believe to be the demonic entities we think are affecting people. Now, again, I'm not saying there aren't troubled spirits in the world. Like I said, human beings are spirits. So, therefore, we can deal with troubled spiritual energy just from human beings. But most of what I really believe we think is a demonic force anymore is very likely a servitor or an egregore. Okay, follow me here. Um, and if there's anything that I'm speaking on that you have questions on, or you want to elaborate more on in the comments, please feel free. I love when we have conversations because I'd love to know your thoughts and answer your questions as best as I possibly can. Um, but the reason why I say this is because, I think back to my practice in Reiki and doing exorcisms and extraction work and cord cuttings and things like that. And I do recall always telling my clients that, it was imperative and important that even if it wasn't with me, that they go speak to a counselor or a therapist or continue to dig into the work so they could get to the root of what created these attachments and allowed them in the first place. Okay. So there was always a psychological root and outlook in everything I've ever done. And now that I've learned more within this last year about what demons really are and did a little more research on servitors as well as egregores because I had heard of them but didn't know a whole lot about them. And then after my experience with other entities and hearing more about servitors and egregores, it definitely led me down this rabbit hole, right? So I believe, just from what I've learned, that a lot of the negative demonic experiences people have had could very likely be an egregore, not the actual spiritual being. Okay. Because I still believe in spiritual beings. I still believe in angels. I still believe in actual demons. I just believe they have different jobs, right? I do believe in actual spiritual beings. But think of how much lore and storytelling and fear-based energy has gone behind some of these names. So this is why when some people think of the name Lilith or Lucifer, they, sorry if that was like really loud. I went super close to the mic for a second because I dropped something. If it wasn't great. And some people will experience a really dark, sometimes violent energy around these names. And what it actually is an egregore. Now, what is an egregore? Let's get to it. Egregore, by definition, is derived from the Greek word for wakeful. And it is a non-physical, autonomous entity or thought form that arises from collective thoughts, emotions, and beliefs of a distinct group. These entities are believed to exist in a psychic realm sustained by the shared focus, such as rituals, ideas, or goals of people ranging from small groups to entire nations. So, what does that mean in a nutshell? An egregore is quite literally a collective or group thought form or belief about something so strongly believed in and emotionally charged that it creates an entity. So, you get a group, a whole group, a collective group of people believing and thinking and feeling that Lucifer is evil and violent and all of these things, these dark, evil, horrifying things. And so, therefore, if somebody says the name or calls upon Lucifer or whatever and isn't really responsible spiritually, energetically, they could very likely be calling on the energy that's been created by a collective of people for generations, not the actual Lucifer, which is why names are so important in spirituality. You know, understanding and defining, refining, strengthening your discernment is so important because you could be very much so pulling from a collective thought form rather than an actual spirit. So think of like how many egregores there could be. Another example of an egregore would be certain areas that just feel a certain way. And this doesn't always have to be negative, right? But I'm just going to use that as an example. You know, there are areas here in Pennsylvania, one of them being Allentown, especially I think it's called Center City, Allentown. I've only been through there once or twice, and every time I'm there, there is this heavy, just violent energy there. And that's because there is a lot of violence in that area. Um, there are tons of areas, I'm sure, from wherever you're at that you know when you enter that space, it just feels different. And that's because the thought forms and emotions are collectively gathered amongst those people. So if you have an area near where you live where there's a lot of violent people, people who are just angry, people who are possibly using drugs, drinking a lot, just invested in really dark paths, you're going to feel that way when you go through there. And that's because there has been an entity of that created by this collective that participates in it. Okay. Now, servitors are similar. Okay. Servitors are thought forms that are given jobs. By the actual definition, a servitor is typically a non-sentient thought form or artificial entity created through focused intention, energy, and visualization to perform a specific task or purpose. These entities are designed to serve their creator in a way similar to like a magical pet, familiar, or mental program. They have typically been engineered for goals such as protection, attracting luck, or assisting in personal growth. Don't mind my scratchiness. I just got done with a attunement and training with a student of mine, and Reiki attunements typically with the class and the attunement and all that take about 2 hours or so. So there was a lot of talking going on. And I'm doing a lot of clearing now from that attunement. So that's why I keep having to like clear my throat and my throat gets scratchy. So sorry if that is a little annoying, but also not sorry because that's why. So servitors are similar, right? Except they have a goal in mind. Where egregores are more a collectively created entity based on thoughts and belief systems about something, right? A servitor is a non-sentient thought form made into an entity that's created with a specific goal. It has a job, essentially. Egregores don't necessarily have a job. Servitors do. So servitors can be created, like I said before, for those positive reasons of like protection, attracting luck, and so on. But how many times have we, with our own thoughts, sabotaged ourselves? How many times have we been completely fine and then just kept telling ourselves, we got insecure about a certain thing in our lives and said, I'm going to mess it up, and we would get more clumsy, or we wouldn't make the goal that we set, or, you fill in the blank. How many times have we created our own servitors of sabotage? And then on the flip side, how many times have we noticed we had a better day when we, let's say, wore that favorite shirt that we just naturally feel good in, or we wore our favorite cologne or perfume, or started our day off with a favorite song, and then the rest of the day just kind of fell into place, and then we just had good days after that because we started committing to those habits. Think of like all the habits you commit to. Your habits are your rituals, and your rituals become things. Thoughts become things, right? So how many servitor-like energies are you feeding daily through your habits, routines, and rituals that could be either sabotaging you or sustaining you and blessing you? So I feel like a lot of what we think is, evil eye. And I mean, that's a whole other topic too. I've said this before. Evil eye can also be a result of your own eyes. If your lens is dirty, then of course you're going to see things as dirty. And therefore you're going to only receive things as dirty. So, but I feel like a lot of things that we think could be evil eye, not that those things don't exist, they do, but it's important to use logic and reason and discernment to also make sure that we are not just creating mental programs that sabotage us and keep us stuck and put us in habits and routines that set us up for failure. And it's important to do, ancestral healing, family healing, generational curse breaking, because generational curses are egregores. That is a collective energy around, you name it, poverty, addiction, illness, relationship issues. That's an egregore because it's been carried on through generations, right? So that's why generational curse breaking can be so difficult, because it's an entity almost in itself that's been created through generations of trauma. So a lot of what I feel like we think is spiritual attack, demonic possession, affliction, and things like that is just unprocessed, unrealized, and unrecognized thought forms that we've created through, it could be trauma, it could be insecurity, it could be fear, addictions, temptations that we're not recognizing and getting the reins on, unprocessed desires, unmet desires and needs, and so much more. So I hope this makes sense. I hope this finds and feeds you well. I hope this clarifies a little bit more based on the demons and demonizers video I did. And I hope it helps you in your spiritual journey with healing and overcoming things that you've been told could be spiritual attack, but could actually just be one thought form away from changing for the better. And if you have any questions or comments or anything I can help you with additionally, comment below. I'd be more than happy to help you. Love you guys so very much. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you soon.